Hello and welcome to my course. Create a marketing plan like the pros do. Hi, my name is Jeff Williams. I'm CEO and Chief Coach for Bizstarters.com, an award-winning business startup coaching company based in Chicago. The foundation of the success of any new company flows from how well the owner can focus on a very specific business mission and then translate that into an action-oriented marketing plan. I know this firsthand because I'm a marketing guy. I combine an MBA in marketing with more than 40 years of hands-on marketing planning experience. During my career, I have seen a multi-million-dollar company started with a marketing strategy written on one side of a napkin. And I've also seen 125-page marketing plans lead to business startups that quickly went out of business. What I have learned is that if you really understand what you want to do with your new business, you can describe your plan in just a few pages. Don't worry that this is your first time starting a business, or that you've never worked on a marketing plan before. I'll show you how to use knowledge you've already collected, plus a bit of research, to craft a marketing strategy uniquely fitted to your personality and your chosen business concept. And don't worry that you may be making mistakes. In my experience, there is no such thing as a perfect marketing plan. Marketing planning is a dynamic process. You keep tweaking your assumptions and creative thinking as time goes by. So don't be too concerned that your marketing plan writing is not exactly everything you want it the first time you do it. I've organized the course into 6 planning units. Here they are. Unit number 1, set your business goals. Unit number 2, find an important problem to solve. Unit number 3, explain why your solution is superior to that of your competitors. Unit number 4, describe your desired customer or client. Unit number 5, craft a compelling selling story. And unit number 6, create a call to action. For each learning unit, you first download the accompanying worksheet and print it out. You then follow the step-by-step instructions on the worksheet to complete a short series of planning tasks by writing your comments into the appropriate blanks. You also receive a downloadable copy of our marketing plan outline, where you can compile all of your comments in one convenient, easily changed document. Well, welcome to the course. Let's get started. Welcome to learning unit number 1. What is marketing? If you look at a dictionary for a definition of the word marketing, you'll find several descriptions, some more complex than others. My favorite way to explain marketing is as follows. Marketing is communicating the value of a product or service to customers for the purpose of selling that product or service. In reality, the more effective you are in communicating the value of the product or service you're offering, the less actual selling you must do. World-renowned management consultant Peter Drucker, I think, really hits it on the head with a quotation he gave in the 1970s. Here is the quotation. Good marketing makes selling superfluous. What he's basically saying here is that if you have a well-focused message on what the benefit is of buying from you, and you communicate it consistently and widely, you will catch the interest and imagination of a lot of potential buyers, and they will come to you. And once they come to you, they already know something about you. They're already favorably disposed because they've seen the benefits. They're in a really good mental position to say, yes, I'm ready to buy. And that is the easiest type of sale to conclude. There are a number of keys to creating a marketing process for your company that in fact will effectively communicate the value of what you offer. Let's take a look at key number 1. The reality is that people and businesses gladly pay for solutions to important problems. In order to benefit from this commonly occurring phenomena, you need to be able to answer 2 key questions. The first question is, what is the problem you feel you know well? And secondly, why is this problem important to people or businesses? As we move into the next learning unit, we will explain to you step by step how to go about defining this. Okay, you've defined a problem that's important and that you know quite a bit about. That's great. That's an important first step. But in order to be able to make a financial benefit from that problem, you have to figure out a solution. We've discovered in working in marketing planning for many, many years that there are two really great ways to focus in on a solid solution to your problem. First is to have actually experienced the problem yourself. I don't know about you, but there are any number of occasions during a typical year when I go looking for something, a service or a product, and I look high and I look low and I cannot find it. Well, chances are pretty good that I'm not unique, that there are other people like me with a similar problem. And if I can figure out a solution for myself, I can figure out a solution for other people also. And the second really good way to figure out a solution is to have worked with many people or businesses who've had the problem. And through consulting and advising these customers or clients, you learn all the different ways to solve the problem. And this is a very solid way to go about creating a solution that you know is going to be very attractive to your customers. Now, stating your problem and the solution can be short and sweet, such as a mother has trouble finding a good assortment of educational puzzles in local stores. So my solution is I will pull together a wide variety of puzzles and offer them on my web store. Or your description of the problem and solution can be a little bit more complicated, such as this example. A Fortune 500 company lost $100 million last year. I will assemble a team of experts to find out why and suggest improvements. Okay, let me use an actual client case story to illustrate what I'm talking about here. Let's look at the problem first. The problem was that a serious worker accident had occurred in a manufacturing plant. And in fact, I believe a worker had lost a finger in a manufacturing machine. So how do we go about creating a solution? Well, our client Ken, who is a health and safety expert, first started off by asking a series of key questions and getting some important answers. He spoke to 3 or 4 different managers at the manufacturing facility, as well as talking to the injured worker himself. He then went back home and, using his many years of experience and a conversation with a fellow consultant, he conceptualized a complete plan to improve safety in the plant and thereby avoiding any accident in the future. Okay, let's return to key number 3 in the process of creating an effective marketing strategy and communicating it in a compelling way. We call this key the reality check. It's all well and good to have identified a problem that you feel is important to consumers or businesses. And it's great that you've taken some time to sit down and think about how will I solve this important problem. But the third key here is how does my solution compare with those of close competitors? You've got to remember that your competitors have been in business longer than you have, in some cases many years ahead of you. Let me use an analogy to illustrate the challenge that you have here when you're starting a new business. Imagine that we're at a track and field event and there's a group of top-notch runners running the 400-meter dash. They break off the starting blocks, but when they get halfway around, there's one runner who will be you, who's way behind the pack. Well, you have to kick in mentally and say, okay, what's my strategy in the next half of the track to catch up to these people and then get in front of them? But in order to do that, you have to be able to assess the strengths and weaknesses of the runners in front of you. And that's really what key number 3 is to be able to compare what you're doing against what other people are doing and be able to say, I'm better because. And we'll show you how to do this in just a few steps. Welcome to Learning Unit 2. This is the first of our 6 marketing planning tasks. This step is to set your business goals. If you do not know where you want to go with your business, you probably will not figure out a process for doing it very effectively. And we've discovered from working with hundreds of new business owners over the last 25 years that a really good place for most people to start is with dollars and cents. And we will show you in the worksheet that accompanies Learning Unit 2 exactly how to go about calculating a very reasonable estimate for your required sales for your first year in business. And this relates back very importantly to, first and foremost, what level of compensation do you feel you need to have during your first year in business. But we don't run a company just for money. You run a company, as I say, for love and money. And the love is really important in the first couple of years because the money's not quite there yet. So part of the love can be interpreted into what is the mission of your company. And there are a number of non-financial goals that you can reasonably achieve your first year in business that are related to mission. An example might be that you have a particular topic related to your business that you have a great interest in, and you've done a lot of research and maybe you started to write some things about it. Well, your goal your first year might be, I want to get that article published in the leading magazine in my industry, and that is a very good non-financial goal. So proceed to download your worksheet for Planning Unit 2, set your goals, print it out, and prepare to follow the instructions to complete the planning task. Okay, let's continue work in Learning Unit number 2, how to set your goals. At this point, you should have downloaded the worksheet for Unit number 2, how to set your goals. You should have it printed out and sitting on your desk, ready to be used. Let's go through and take a quick look at the steps that are involved in setting your financial goal, your dollar and cents goal. First of all, you want to look at a 1-year time frame. That's a good, reasonable amount of time to look into the future and say, what do I want to achieve in the next 12 months? Start first of all with the money you want in the bank. This is what's known in the corporate world as take-home pay. Do you want to have $10,000 in the bank, $20,000, $30,000? Now, obviously, you got to be reasonable about this. Most businesses are not going to put $100,000 in the bank the first year. But you may not need that. You have other sources of income. Perhaps you're doing some work on the side in addition to your business. You may not need more than $20,000 or $30,000 from the business. Then we add in a factor for business expenses. We show you in the worksheet how to estimate your expenses. And then we add a third dollar amount to the other two, and that's a factor to cover income taxes. And once again, there's a worksheet that shows you exactly how to go about doing that. So you take the amount of money you want in the bank, you take a some dollar amount for business expenses, and you add in a dollar amount for income taxes to make sure you keep the tax man happy. And when you add those three together, this is a very reasonable estimate for the total sales you need your first year. Now, we don't know yet how long it's going to take to really achieve this. We hope we can do it in 12 months. We do not know yet. But this is a very solid way to start when you're planning a couple months before launching your company. Now, the last step in setting your financial goals is a little reality check. And the best way to do this is to use your experience to figure out what's a basic unit of sale in my kind of business. In other words, am I selling a project for so many dollars? Am I selling an hour of service? Am I selling a unit of product? You should know enough about your business concept at this point to know what the unit of sale is. Let's take, for example, that you're going to do coaching, business coaching. In most metropolitan areas, it's very common to be able to charge $150 an hour for this type of coaching. So let's say you take your dollar amount, which is the total of those three different dollar expenses, and you divide it by $150. This gives you a very rough idea of how many hours of coaching you have to sell in 12 months in order to make your sales goal. Now, chances are this is going to be a fairly large number. It could be 60, 80, 90 units. And at this point, you may be thinking, oh my goodness, how will I ever do this all by myself? Well, as we get further into this course, you will see that by defining your benefits very specifically, you will attract customers to you who don't want to buy from you just once. They want to buy from you repeatedly. And once you've made the introduction to someone and gotten the initial sale, any sale that comes after that is much easier and less expensive to get. So let's move on to our next step. As we mentioned in the introduction to the planning unit, Set Your Goals, there are not only financial goals worth achieving, but there's also non-financial goals. And let's just take a look briefly here at some very achievable goals. Goal number 1, write an article and get the media to print it. This could be a newspaper, could be a magazine. Goal number 2, create and deliver a speech at a trade show. This is a bit of a challenge, and you usually have to start 8 or 9 months in advance, but you can do it. I've done it. You can do it. Goal, build a local coaching group. I've also done this. As a matter of fact, one of the first things I did a couple of years ago when I started a new product specifically aimed at people over age 50 was I started a group on LinkedIn that was specifically aimed at this age group and people with this interest. And I've slowly been building that group over time. But I think in the first year I had 35 or 40 people in the group without really working at it very hard. And fourth goal that could be very achievable is to develop and deliver a webinar to some group of people. Welcome to Learning Unit 3. Find a problem you can solve. This is very critically important in building a successful marketing plan, because this involves what's really the key to financial success in any new business. And it's based on 2 steps. Number 1, people and businesses pay for solutions to problems. And number 2, if you deliver a superior solution, they will pay you very well. Okay, at this point, you should have downloaded the worksheet for Learning Unit 3, How to Find a Problem. Let's take a look at some of the key ingredients in doing this. First of all, you can start off by using a blank piece of paper, and based on your experience and the business you've chosen, write down every problem you can think of, no matter how minor you think it is. And then number 2, go back through those, and this is a bit of a challenge, but try to put yourself in the mindset of a customer. Maybe you've had a similar problem and this is going to be easy to do, but if not, you have to kind of pretend this is how I might look at this if I had this problem. And go down your list. Maybe you got 15 problems, and use a scale of 1 to 5. 1 meaning not such an important problem, and 5 meaning a very important problem. And just take your pen or pencil and go down very quickly to the right of each problem description and put a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. Then look at the ones that have 5s next to them. Probably won't be more than 3 or 4 in total. And do a little reality check. You know, we've talked about reality checks previously in this course. I believe in stopping every now and then and saying, wait a minute, do I really know what I'm doing here? So this is a reality checkpoint once again. Look at all the problems you rated as 5s and ask yourself honestly, am I really good at solving that problem? If you don't feel you're as good as you should be, and you really think it's the problem that you want to build your business around, then you're going to have to get some extra help, some education, or potentially a partner. And then finally, you'll probably, after you do the reality check, you'll probably have us down to just 1 or 2 problems. Write them on a separate lines on your piece of paper and say, here are my 2 problems with the best prospects for building a business around. Welcome to Learning Unit 4. Head-to-head, is your solution superior? The reality that lies behind this particular planning task is that most purchases made today, whether they be by consumers or by business managers, are made as a result of some kind of comparison. You're being compared with somebody else. And this is particularly easy to do today because of the ease of doing web searches. To determine if your solution is superior to others, you must first look at what your competitors are offering, which means that, once again, you must think like a customer and say, okay, if I had this problem and I wanted to be able to see 2 or 3 different solutions from different sources, what would I put into a search engine in terms of a series of words in order to try to find information on this. And as you'll see in a minute, we're going to show you how to go in and do your own competitive evaluation acting like a customer. As you will see on your worksheet for planning unit number 3, how to determine if your solution is superior, there are 4 main steps, and let me just summarize them and explain them a little bit in detail here. Step number 1 is to take the problem apart. It's very rare that the motivation that a potential buyer has related to a specific problem is focused on just one issue. It could be a combination of they want variety in the product, plus they want purchase convenience, plus they want different ways to buy it. All 3 of those could be rolled together into what they call a problem. So we show you on the worksheet how to take your identified problem and kind of break it down into subsets. Once you've done this, you can then move to step number 2, which is to create a set of features. Features are characteristics of what you're selling. You create features to satisfy the motivations. For example, let's say the motivation is greater convenience. You can set a feature that says we're open 7 days a week, you can order online, you can customize online. These are all features that are related to convenience. Step number 3 is to then take each of your feature statements, which you'll probably have 4 or 5 of them, and once again, thinking like that customer, you want to convert them into a benefit. In other words, why is it a benefit to me that I can order from you online? Or why is it a benefit to me that you have 42 different versions of the product instead of 22? Why is that a benefit? Because the hard reality of the world of selling things is that the people you want to sell to have one consideration in their mind, and that is, what's in it for me? How do I benefit? And then step number 4 is, once you know what your benefits are, that you think are very well connected to your problem and its solution, you then can go out and doing a competitive evaluation, which we describe in the worksheet how to do. You then say, okay, how do my benefits look compared to my top 2 or 3 competitors? Now you may say to me, I don't really have any local competitors. Well, that's not the consideration that's important. What's important is that because of the internet, your competitor could be 1,000 miles away. It's very rare that businesses only have competition in their own backyard. Even my local jewelry store here in suburban Chicago, he largely sells to people who live within 25 miles of his store, but he has a line of product that's carried by a lot of jewelers in the United States and sold all over the internet, sometimes for better prices than you can get at a retail store. So is that not competition? I think it is. Welcome to Learning Unit 5, Define Your Target Customer. Figuring out a problem and providing a superior solution only pays if you can find people or companies to pay for it. But you may be asking yourself, which people or companies? The reality is that for many new companies, they need to attract fewer than 1,000 potential customers their first year in business. But they're surrounded by millions of people. So how do you narrow it down? That's what this planning step is involved with. As you'll see in just a minute, there are a number of techniques you can use to narrow down your population of customers you want to go after in order to make your time management more effective. Because in most cases, it's just you running the business. You have to do the marketing planning, you have to deliver the marketing messages, you have to make the sales calls, you have to get the orders, you have to deliver it. Now you can obviously get some help doing some of this, but marketing is an intensely personal thing for new business owners, and you have to expect that you're going to be doing most of it by yourself the first year. So we need to narrow down your selling process as effectively as we can. Okay, we're continuing in planning step 4, how to define your target customer. At this point, you should have downloaded the worksheet for planning unit 4, defining your target customer. You should have it printed off and sitting on your desk ready to go. To summarize the process that's involved, I use a sports metaphor here, and I describe this as finding your bullseye. And let me just set up a little mental picture for you to describe what I mean here. Imagine a dartboard, maybe in a bar or tavern. And ask yourself, in which area of the dartboard do you receive the greatest number of points if you stick your dart? Well, it happens to be that tiny little circle right in the middle, and that's called the bullseye. And this is what you're trying to do with your customers. You have thousands and thousands of potential customers, consumers, businesses around you. How do you narrow it down to maybe 500 really good prospects? Because that's the bullseye. You got the highest probability of making profitable sales from the people that are defined in the bullseye. And this worksheet shows you how to go through the step-by-step to define your bullseye for your business. Let's talk a little bit more about how to find your bullseye. Let me explain the 3 steps that we present in the worksheet. Step number 1, understand the strongest motivations. As I described in the previous learning unit, quite often when people say they have a problem, that comes from a combination of emotions that they're feeling. And some may be stronger than others. For example, the motivation for getting a home security unit put into your house may be fear, and that fear comes from the fact that your neighbor 3 doors down was burglarized recently. Now, there may be other reasons they want the security system. Maybe they wanted to impress their neighbors that they have enough possessions to need a security system. That's another motivation, but that's not necessarily the strongest motivation here. So, step number 1 is to use your experience and some research if necessary to define what's the strongest 1 or 2 motivations for your potential customer, because this is partly how you're going to define who they are. Then step number 2 is to use something that sounds really complicated, but it's not so complicated, and that is using what are called demographics. Demographics are characteristics of the U.S. population. And we particularly focus on this every 10 years when they do the U.S. Census, because that tells us certain things about people. It tells us how large their houses are. It tells us whether they own 1 car, 2 cars, or 3 cars. This information is all available free of charge at any large local library. But some common demographics for consumers, for example, could be age, could be a level of education, could be gender, could be whether they have children or not. And for businesses, there are also demographics, and their demographics could be the industry category in which they operate. It could be the number of employees they have. It could be the level of software they're using, the generation of software. Those are all business demographics. Now, it may take you some research and some digging out, but I would strongly urge you to go to your large local library and find out if they have a business librarian, because more and more libraries have this today to serve local business. And just say, I'm working on a marketing plan for a new company. Can you help me obtain some demographics for the people I want to sell to? And chances are very good they're going to say, fine, make an appointment, come on and see us. And then step number 3 is to take a couple of the demographics. It could be, for example, level of education or whether they have children or not, and then explain in writing why those demographics are important to satisfying motivations. For example, some motivations we have in life are definitely related to age. When you are in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, a very strong motivation is, how can I get my next promotion in the corporate world? And for example, if you're providing a career advice as a coach to someone and you want to aim it primarily at people that are still very much in the middle of getting promoted, then you care about the age. As you get older, in your 50s, your motivation may be, how do I keep my job? Not whether I get a promotion or not. So that's a different demographic. It's a different motivation. So you would describe the demographics and the influence on your marketing strategy would be different in those 2 different age groups. And that's what we're doing in this planning step. Welcome to learning unit number 6, create a compelling selling story. When you take your written benefits that we worked on previously and instead of listing them just as bullet points but actually making them into flowing sentences, you are well on your way to creating a selling story. A selling story is a communication between you and a potential customer that says, here's what we're doing, here's the features of what we're doing, here's how you benefit from these features. We want to put that together and into a compact set of words that we can use in a wide variety of places. All right, progressing in learning unit number 6, how to create your selling story. At this point, you should have downloaded the planning worksheet, printed it out, and have it on your desk for learning unit number 6, how to create your selling story. Let me go through each of the key steps in doing this, give you a little explanation. Step 1. I've said this before several times. You maybe think that I'm a broken record, but think like your customer. As I said before, your benefits and features only matter if they resound with your customer, your potential customer, your target customer. Step 2 is to answer 3 key questions that will help build your selling story. And we list each of these in the planning worksheet, and we give you a space to write out your version of each of these 3 questions. This is really a summary version of your selling story. Step number 3, describe what gives you value. In addition to your features and benefits, as I said way back in Learning Unit 3, you are being compared. And what you're being compared on is not really price as much as it is value. And value is a combination of a number of things. It could be price, it could be variety, it could be convenience, it could be service after the sale. Many products and services have different value equations, as it's called. So in step 3 on the worksheet, we show you how to go about evaluating and describing the value of your product or service. Step number 4 is you probably will have to give some information on the price. But what you try to do here is not compete directly on a given price, but something like buy 2 get 1 free, or buy this and we'll give you this at half price, or buy these 3 items and you'll get this special item. That's a more effective way to describe your pricing than to just say, here's our benefits and it's $49.95. And then last is step number 5, where we show you how to put it all together. And part of putting it together is you have to realize that you're going to use your selling story in a lot of different situations during your first year in business. There's going to be that Chamber of Commerce breakfast that you're going to go to where everybody's talking, and you've got like 1 minute to talk to somebody, and they say, Fred, what do you do? What does your company do? Well, obviously, you don't have time to go through your whole marketing strategy and explain it to them. You've got to be able to narrow this down to, say, 10 words or less. On the other hand, on your website, because it can be written in a way that people can read a little bit, then stop, then read some more, you can have a very extensive selling story on your website. You can break it into 10 pages if you want, because you give people the time to read and consider and come back to your site, go back out, go back in again. So there's going to be different lengths and forms of your selling story that you're going to need to use, but they all flow from what you create in this worksheet. In the previous slide, I mentioned that in creating your selling story, there are 3 key questions that, if you can answer quickly and to the point, will create the heart of your selling story. I really tried to simplify this process as best I can for you. And here are the 3 questions, just for you to think about. These are listed in the worksheet and with spaces for you to write in your version. The first is, my solution is blank, blank, blank. It is superior because blank, blank, blank. It provides superior value because blank, blank, blank. Welcome to Learning Unit number 7, your call to action. This is the last of the 6 planning tasks that you will use to create a really powerful marketing plan for your new business. Now, this particular planning task is based on a reality of life, and that is that even when people understand what it is they want to do, they sometimes need a nudge to do what they need to do. This is called your call to action. There's an old expression that you probably have heard, and that is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Well, in reality, you can lead a horse to water, but then you have to tell them how to drink. And that's the call to action. We show you in this section of the worksheet a series, 6 or 7 different types of calls to action that you can use. We also explain that at different points in time you will use different calls to action. You don't set one and use that one only for your first year in business. So this is a kind of a thought-provoking end piece to the course, just to have you sit down once again like the customer and say, okay, I know your benefits now, I know your feature, I know something about your pricing, I'm very motivated, what do you want me to do? Well, there are any number of things you can ask me to do, but you need to be very specific about this. And particularly on your website, on every page, you need to have at the bottom of the page some call to action. It could be click here to learn more, or click here to register for our webinar, or click here to check yourself out on this particular skill. Those are all calls to action, and they're very important on the internet because people are doing this on their own volition. They're self-guided. You need to tell them what to do next. Welcome to Learning Unit number 7, your call to action. This is the last of the 6 planning tasks that you will use to create a really powerful marketing plan for your new business. Now, this particular planning task is based on a reality of life, and that is that even when people understand what it is they want to do, they sometimes need a nudge to do what they need to do. This is called your call to action. There's an old expression that you probably have heard, and that is you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. Well, in reality, you can lead a horse to water, but then you have to tell them how to drink. And that's the call to action. We show you in this section of the worksheet a series, 6 or 7 different types of calls to action that you can use. We also explain that at different points in time you will use different calls to action. You don't set one and use that one only for your first year in business. So this is a kind of a thought-provoking end piece to the course, just to have you sit down once again like the customer and say, okay, I know your benefits now, I know your feature, I know something about your pricing, I'm very motivated, what do you want me to do? Well, there are any number of things you can ask me to do, but you need to be very specific about this. And particularly on your website, on every page, you need to have at the bottom of the page some call to action. It could be click here to learn more, or click here to register for our webinar, or click here to check yourself out on this particular skill. Those are all calls to action, and they're very important on the internet because people are doing this on their own volition. They're self-guided. You need to tell them what to do next.